Gen Z is dating significantly less than other generations. What has changed?
I ask a question in all my audiences at this moment. Did you grow up playing freely on the street? The parents of Gen Z will raise their hands and say, we did. And then I ask, do your children or do you know children who are playing freely on the street? And you get a few hands. That's it. That's the Gen Z. If you don't play freely on the street, you basically are missing out on an entire ground for social negotiation, where you learn to play together, to make rules, to break rules, to have wars, to make peace, to create alliances, to make up, the whole thing. If you don't practice those muscles, where you come up to strangers and you ask them to play with you, and then you meet somebody else, and then you join people together, you really are practicing relationships. All of that precedes dating. If you don't have that, then dating becomes the first time that you have to actually learn to speak to someone. God forbid if it's even in person, and look into their eyes and look at their body, because so much of our life at this point is completely disembodied and we don't ever see people move.
Wow, never even thought of that.
So dating becomes this Olympus that you have to climb, this whole mountain, and it's very anxiety provoking. And that is one of the main things. So when we say Gen Z doesn't date as much, Gen Z doesn't socialize in person, Gen Z doesn't have that many parties. What a waste. What a pity to not have dance parties and just hang together. It's not that they don't socialize, but it's a different kind of social. I spoke to so-and-so means I texted them. No, I didn't speak. I didn't hear the voice. If you don't hear the voice, you're missing out on the entire oxytocin attachment hormone that gets produced while you're hearing the voice. The voice is the first thing you hear when you are in utero. So you say you spoke, but you didn't. You connected, you had contact. And at every level, you see an atrophy of the social skills, which creates a real sense of bracing myself. I'm going out to date, which I don't like because it's not fun.
You're so right. And you're opening up my mind to so many different things that I don't think we're thinking about. This idea of being disembodied. We're only looking at FaceTime.
And not just that. Now I look in your eyes, you look in my eyes, and we have mirror neurons firing at each other. We are really connecting. Voice, sight, breath. I mean, all the senses are involved. On Zoom or on any screen, we think we're looking at the other, but we actually are not making eye contact. So this pseudo experience, as if I am looking at you and you're looking at me, but in fact we don't, means that neurologically, none of this is actually happening.
Wow. Yeah, you're so right. And most of us on Zoom are just looking at ourselves. I've started to hide my self view because I just realized that you're just looking at yourself and you're looking at your reflection so much. We're overexposed to our own reflection, which is why we're so critical of ourselves and we're so we're evaluating and analyzing ourselves all the time. But you're absolutely right that even if you look at someone else through a screen, you're not making the quality of contact we feel. And there's a reason I actually feel that. I feel exhausted on Zooms and exhausted on digital contact.
That is a part of that, is because the actual contact, which is soothing, eye-to-eye contact, and when you are in a safe situation, is actually soothing. It regulates you. When it is as if, but not really, and nothing really happens up there, then you are exhausted. And you know what it means to look at yourself the whole day? It's like the enshrinement of narcissism.
Absolutely.
We look here, Narcissus, he used to look at himself in the water and look at his reflection the whole time.
And it's the same as what you're saying with the lack of contact, where you say, oh yeah, I spoke to so-and-so, or I heard from them. And you're so right that we're missing out on these very analog behaviors that our body's craving, our mind is craving, and we're not really in touch. I read this study that said 45% of men aged 16 to 25 today have never approached a woman in public. And I was thinking, I grew up at a time where all we did was have to pluck up the courage to walk over to a woman in a bar, at the mall, wherever it was, to just say, hey, you're cute. Or like, hey, can I get your number? Hey, can I, whatever it was. And I remember how stressful that was as a man. So I realized that there's stress. But today, do you think it's a fear of rejection? Do you think it's a lack of social skills, as you're mentioning? Where's that coming from?
So I think there's a number of different things going on at the same time. Continuing with less social interaction is also the fact that we're more and more living in a contactless world. You don't have to leave your house for a lot of things that, it's not just you would come up to the girl and start talking to her. Since the pandemic, we learned we didn't have to leave the house to go to school. And the 18 to 25-year-old is the generation that went to school during the pandemic. So that's the first thing, is a complete cutoff of the socialized world. You don't have to leave your house to work, to shop, to eat, to exercise, contactless. You can have everything delivered without having to even thank the person who is bringing the food. At every level, we have tried to remove contact and friction. Coming up to talk to a girl is friction. You don't know. You fantasize, I'm thinking of a story that a friend of mine just told me when he was sitting on a train, and for 5 hours he saw this girl and he just was thinking, I would love to go and talk to her, but he couldn't muster the courage to go speak with her. Finally, after 5 hours, he gets up, he goes, he talks, and for the rest, they spend a week traveling together in Europe. And then he tells me, if I was today, he's a father of a Gen Z, if I would be spending my 5 hours writing to my AI companion, what should I say? I'm anxious. I don't know how to go. He would have basically spent his time trying to regulate his nervous system and try to calm down, but he would have talked to his AI rather than to the girl. Yeah. And he would have talked to the AI about how hard it is to go and meet this girl, and he would never have traveled with her for the week. Yeah. And this removing of the friction. So what is, to me, the killer of desire? We'll come back to that. But what happens in your statistic is 18 to 25. In your time, you basically started this whole process of meeting girls, or boys meeting boys, girls meeting girls, in your teens. So 15, 16, you were practicing. You were falling in love. You had crushes. You dealt with rejection. You rejected others. It went both ways, etc. Most Gen Z today start their first experiences around 24, 26.
Wow.
So the whole thing is delayed by 10 years.
Yeah.
But when you meet at 24 or 25 for the first time, you often meet with the lack of experience of the 15-year-old. You haven't had that slow build-up, and you didn't have sex the first time necessarily either. But first you spoke, then you hung, then you spent the day together, then you brought them to your friends. You had an entire process of engagement that's made you more and more comfortable each time. That whole training launching pad has been shrunken to dating. You'd never called it dating, by the way, before. I'm interested, I like someone, I would like to speak with this person, I have a crush on this person, I fell in love with this person. You didn't date. You just had these feelings that took you.
I feel like we're living at a time where conversations about therapy, about our emotions,